Welcome to the first episode in our C2500 pickup adventure. This series is all about our 1994 Chevrolet C2500 farm pickup truck. So a kind neighbor has donated this pickup truck to us. Today we'd like to get it on the trailer and haul it back to the shop so that we can start working on it. We lined the trailer up as best we could, then attached the winch to the truck.
We're making some sand.
Good. It took a little time to get the wheels aligned with the ramps, and constant correction of the steering to keep it lined up with the trailer, but the winch eventually got it where it needed to be. Okay, now you need to tie it down. We used ratchet straps, 2 on the rear axle and 1 on each side of the front suspension to securely tie the pickup down. So we've got the old new pickup truck loaded and we're about to make our way back home again. We headed off for the drive back home again, and soon we were bringing the pickup truck up our driveway and to the shop. Right, so we've got the pickup truck to the shop, so we can start offloading it now.
This is how I had my camera. I had my camera like yours.
Alright.
Come on.
Offloading was very much like loading. We made sure that the wheels were on the ramps while slowly letting the truck roll off the trailer. Thank you.
You need to push the out button?
Yeah,
This one
flick
right
it,
here,
just
right?
flick, flick, flick. Yeah, go. Go. Right, let it go. Come on. Come on. Check the time. Right, come. 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 Come.
This side.
It's okay, come. The kids all jumped in to help wash the truck. It took quite a while to get it cleaned properly, and it looked good once all the dust had been washed off. According to the farmer who owned the truck, it had been standing in the barn for between 10 and 15 years, so before I started it up, I decided to do some basic prep work on the engine. So the first thing that I'm going to do is remove each of the plugs and put in some of this special oil, which is supposed to lube the cylinders for the first startup after a while. I'm going to do this first so that this oil has got some time to soak in. I'm also not going to put too much in because you don't want to hydrolock the engine. The second thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to replace these spark plugs with new spark plugs, and I'm going to check that each one is gapped correctly. According to the manual, it should be gapped to 0.35 of an inch, which is there. So I'm going to replace each of those as I go along. As I replace the spark plugs, I'm going to also torque them down, and according to the information that I have, they should be at 11 foot-pounds, so I will use that torque setting on my torque wrench. Right, so we've done the 4 on this side with easy access. We're now going to come around to this side of the engine and do these 4 that have a little harder access. Alright, so the next thing we did was to try and drain the fuel from the fuel tank. And what you'll see we did over here is I connected a wire into the grey wire which supplies power to the fuel pump, and nothing came out of the fuel filter which we had disconnected. So I've checked that we have power on the fuel pump and still nothing. So I think we have a bad fuel pump. So what we're busy doing now is we're installing a new fuel pump. I've undone the 8 bolts on the bed and put 3 back in just to make sure the bed doesn't fall off, and then I've jacked up the side of the bed so that we can gain access to the fuel pump, which sits over there. So what I'm going to do now is undo these hoses. You'll see this one's already loose. I'm going to undo the rest, do that one over there, and then we're going to remove the fuel pump and install a new fuel pump. Removing the fuel pump should be fairly easy. You use a screwdriver to rotate the retaining ring and it lifts out. However, this ring would not rotate, and it took some persuasion to get it loose. Alright, so here we can see the old fuel pump that we've just taken out. You can see it's really badly corroded. This rubber is totally collapsed, and you can see there was a very little bit of fuel in the tank, and the rest of it is all really badly corroded. So I'm going to go ahead and drain out any of the fuel that I can, and then proceed to put the new fuel pump in. I used a flexible tube with a section of brake line to siphon out the fuel that was in the bottom of the tank. I really struggled though, because it continually got blocked with little pieces of rust, and I realized that the tank must be full of rust. The only way I knew to get the rust out would be to remove the fuel tank. In order to do this, I had to disconnect the hoses and then undo the straps that held the tank in place. Alright, so with the amount of junk we found when we were busy trying to pull the fuel out, I've decided it's probably best to pull the entire fuel tank out and clean it. So we've just dropped it down. We're going to take it out and empty out the contents. So this is what we have taken out of the fuel tank, all the rust. We haven't been able to get it all out, and there's still some inside of there. So I have decided to go ahead and replace this fuel tank. So I have a new fuel tank on order, and once that gets here, we'll go ahead and install that. Alright, so we've now got our new fuel tank, and we're going to install the fuel pump and fuel level sensor. What we've done is put a little bit of red rubber grease on the inside where the seal is going, just to help with the seal. Alright, so I've installed a new fuel pump. What I've noticed is that this head unit is still slightly loose inside of there. So a tip that I saw recently on one of the videos that I was watching is to bend these tabs down slightly to put a little bit more force on there. So I'm going to remove this and then bend those tabs down and see if we can tighten it up a little. Installing this fuel tank was a bit of a challenge. It was very bulky and hard to hold up while you were trying to draw it up with the straps. It took some time, but eventually I was able to get it into its position. Alright, so now that we've got the fuel tank in position, I'm going to go ahead and connect up the line that connects here to the fill line. And then I'm going to go and connect up the pressure line, but not the return line, which is this one over here. And I'm going to put the return line to go into a bucket and put power onto the fuel pump and just allow this fuel tank to flush out anything that's in the fuel lines so that we have clean fuel all the way returning to the tank. Once I've done that, then I'll go ahead and connect the rest up. We also went ahead and replaced the fuel filter, oil filter and the air filter. Finally, it was time to see if we could start it. It didn't take us long to take the truck out for a test drive, and soon after that it was at work, busy cleaning up on the fence line. We still have quite a few things to do to this truck. Keep an eye out for upcoming episodes.